Welcome, everybody. We are pleased to have with us today Joy Smith. Joy is the area manager from the Community Work Incentive. She's the Community Work Incentive Coordinator in Western Pennsylvania. Joy is from AHEDD. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you very much.
And if everybody, you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a questions option. So if you click on that little down arrow, you can post any of the questions that you have. Joy will be taking questions throughout and at the end of the presentation. So if you can put your question in there, we will do our best to get to you. And also know that we're going to be doing a few polls throughout Joy's presentation, and those will periodically pop up on your screen. So welcome, Joy. The screen is all yours.
Well, hello and good afternoon. Here we are, June 10th already. It's hard to believe, but summer is underway and it's definitely a hot day here in Western Pennsylvania. So what we're going to talk about today is promoting employment among Social Security beneficiaries. There's going to be a lot of information in the presentation, so please feel free to ask questions. And then also at the end of the presentation, there'll be a way for you to seek individual services. A lot of the information that I'm going to go over today is general because Social Security information is really case by case. Everyone's situation is a little bit different, so we like to offer individualized sessions as well. Like I said, that'll be later on in the presentation on how to reach out to us. So that's just a little bit about our company, a disclaimer there, and my contact information. I do work for AHEDD. I'm a certified work incentive counselor and have been doing this for almost 20 years by now, so long time. A little bit about our agency. AHEDD has been around since 1977. We started off as an employment agency, helping people with disabilities find employment. We still do that throughout the state, but since 2001, we expanded to work incentive counseling. So we have a grant primarily from the Social Security Administration to provide this. We've had this since 2001, and we've had other sponsors throughout the years come on board. So this is something we feel strongly about. You know, we still encourage individuals to work, but we realize that you need to know what's going to go on with your benefits if you plan on securing employment. So that's key. And AHEDD also coordinates the PA Business Leadership Network. What we've tried to do from the beginning is change some of the assumptions out there and just the thought process, because you know, we receive a lot of phone calls from people, and the #1 question is, well, how many hours can I work before I lose my benefits? You know, or I only want to work part-time because I can't lose my benefits. And I understand why people ask those questions, because there are certain guidelines you need to follow. But what we really want to see people is to want to work to be better off financially. I think all of us want that in our lives, whether it's something from having a better place to live, you know, a different type of car, going on vacations with your family, or just going out to eat. You know, all those things are important to us, and you want to have a better life. So really, that's what we want to talk to individuals about. We do give them the guidance on what they can and cannot do, but you really want to look and have a better life for yourself, whatever that means for you individually. So that's what we've been trying to do. The Social Security Administration realizes there's a lot of barriers to employment. Back in 2001, well, actually in 1999, when they started working with Ticket to Work and these benefits counselors that we have now, at the federal level, Social Security understands, you know, that there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and they want to educate individuals. Before 1999 or 2001, you know, you kind of got on your Social Security benefits, and that was about it. There weren't a lot of, you know, educational formats for individuals to help them understand their benefits, what's going on, and those types of things. So really, they wanted to give people knowledge, information on what they can and cannot do, so a person can make a good decision. You know, there's a ton of fear out there. You're afraid because, you know, you're counting on that SSDI benefit coming in each month, and that pays all of your bills. So what happens if that doesn't come in? You know, that's scary. And the second bullet there, eligibility criteria. For some individuals, it's tough to get on Social Security benefits. You know, there's a ton of paperwork. Well, everything with Social Security, there's a ton of paperwork, but application is a lengthy process, and sometimes it takes years. Sometimes you have to get an attorney involved. So it's difficult. So when you look at that and say, oh, you know, it took me 2 years to go on benefits. Now some lady's talking to me about going back to work, or I want to go back to work and I have questions, like, what's all this mean? The third bullet is there's a lot of wrong or partial information out there. You know, there's some myths out there that have been going around for years and years and years that, you know, okay, work 20 hours a week and you'll be okay. That was never true, and that is still not true. So what we're trying to do through these types of outreach events, and also with meeting with people individually, is giving you the correct information based on your situation. You know, this is not easy information to understand. The complexity within these administrations of benefits is overwhelming, especially if you have multiple benefits. Maybe you get SSI from the Social Security Administration, and then you get medical assistance from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and then you get some SNAP benefits from the Commonwealth, and maybe you live in subsidized housing. So you got like 3 or 4 different agencies with different rules, and how do they all connect, and how do you know, bring them back together for your benefit? It is difficult. There's a lot of you know, just intricacies that here we have to go through. The last one is overpayments. Overpayments happen a lot. I'm sure people on the call, someone, at least one person has experienced it. Basically, an overpayment is when Social Security has paid you too much, and they figure that out, and then they send you a letter saying, hey, we want our money back, and you have to pay them that money back. Overpayments happen for a variety of reasons, sometimes with living situations changing, sometimes if you have too much assets in the bank, but the number one reason overpayment occurs is because of earnings, and not reporting your earnings, or maybe not doing it in the correct way. So overpayments are a big issue for a lot of individuals. So, okay, excuse me for 1 second. I am so sorry. I had to step away for a second. The joys of working from home. Okay, so actually, this is where we have a polling question. Okay, so it looks like the poll is closed, I think. And the result, so the question was, what is the difference between SSI and SSDI? We had 54% say work history, 31% said age, and 15% said type of disability. So the majority is correct. It is a work history issue between the SSI and SSDI. So hopefully, hide polling. Okay, perfect. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen again. Okay, so we're going to talk about SSI and SSDI. The first one we're going to talk about is Social Security Disability Insurance, and that is considered a Title II benefit. This is basically publicly funded long-term disability. So when all of us work and we're paying taxes, a certain percentage of what we pay into taxes, specifically Social Security, goes into SSDI if you would ever need it at some point in your life. It's very similar the way it's set up to retirement benefits. So we're all paying in, and then when we hit retirement age, we're hoping to be able to retire, no longer work, and receive a retirement benefit from Social Security. So it's yes.
We have one question. Maybe we can pause for 1 minute. And it sounds like this is coming from somebody who works within the school system. And she's asking, how do we support students who are exiting high school to get Social Security SSI benefits transferred from parents?
So I'm thinking she's asking if the child no longer wants the parent to be the representative payee and they want to be their own payee. If that is the case, once that child turns 18, they could go to the Social Security Administration and ask for that to be changed. They would have to have the parent's approval for that to happen.
So Joy, if a student is receiving Social Security off of their parents' income, and they are aging out of that and they're turning 19 or aging out of school, can they apply on their own?
Yes, they can. Yes.
Is there a different process to transfer from the parent to the student themselves or to the young adult themselves?
It depends on what type of benefit they're getting off of the parent. If the parent is still alive, that's considered a insured beneficiary, as opposed to if the parent's deceased, and that's a survivor's benefit. They're slightly different, but the transfer is generally the same, but they would need to contact the local Social Security Administration in order to have that processed over. In the past, years ago, Social Security recommended doing that 3 months before the 18th birthday. They no longer recommend that. The child, the young adult, could go down on the day of their 18th birthday or later. They have to physically be 18 for those things to be transferred over now. They don't do anything in advance. Any other questions right now in the chat or anything like that?
I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So with Social Security Disability Insurance, there is a 6-month waiting period for cash benefits. There is a 2-year wait for Medicare. So anyone that's on SSDI would be eligible for Medicare. So you could have a younger individual be on SSDI and be on Medicare, which we typically think Medicare is for our elder population, our senior citizens, but you would get Medicare under SSDI. Everyone's SSDI benefit is a different amount, very similar to retirement benefits, because when we work, we all pay in different amounts of money. So when we're eligible for either SSDI or retirement, everyone would get a different amount. Some people on SSDI get $200 a month. Some people get $2,000 a month. The general rule is the more you pay in, the more you get. There's a calculation that they do to figure all that out, but That's the general rule. So you're on SSDI. So we first got to figure out if you're on SSDI or SSI. So we've figured out that you're on SSDI, and now you want to go to work and you have some questions. So on SSDI, you have something called a trial work period. A trial work period is 9 months long, where basically Social Security is telling you, go to work, see how you do at the job. Nothing's going to happen to your SSDI cash benefit. This trial work period is only 9 months long, and you only get one the entire time you're on Social Security disability. So you have to look to see if you've ever used this trial work period in the past. So if you're someone that's worked here and there while you've been on SSDI, we always check back to see, did you use any of those trial work period months? Because like I said, you only get one the entire time you're on disability. For example, let's say you didn't work at all, and this is the first time you're going back to work and you're on SSDI. So you can say, okay, well, let's go to work and see how it goes. So you're going to have 9 months to try out the job, and you're still going to retain your full SSDI cash benefit. For that trial work period to count for those 9 months, for this year, a person would have to earn $910 gross per month. So if you have a job and you're working part-time and you're making $800 a month, you are not in your trial work period. But let's say it's going well and you start increasing your hours, get a raise, and you're starting to make, you know, $950 a month, that would be the month your trial work period starts. That's critical to know, because directly after the trial work period ends, you go into something called an extended period of eligibility. What that means is you're still open with Social Security and they still have your case file open, but if you're earning over a certain amount of money, you would no longer get your SSDI cash benefit. Many people hear the acronym called SGA, Substantial Gainful Activity. That's the dollar amount where Social Security says, hey, if you go to work and make this much or more, you're no longer going to be eligible for your SSDI. So the substantial gainful activity amount for this year is $1,260 gross per month. So that's really where a person needs to look and see, where are they at in their job? Are they doing well enough that they can go off benefits, or do they need to keep their benefits because they're not able to make that $1,260 or more? So with SSDI, a lot of people are very worried, like, oh, I can't take this job because I'm going to lose everything. But just going through these couple work incentives, you got 9 months, and then the extended period of eligibility lasts another 3 years. So you know, there's a long time there where you can try out these jobs to see how it goes, but it all depends on where you're at in the process. After the extended period of eligibility, then they look back to see if they should keep you on benefits or if you would be terminated. That's kind of down the line, and there's a lot of things that depend on that. But that first incentive there, the trial work period, is key. That's your starting point. Maybe I'll pause for a minute to see if anyone has any questions, because I know I just said a lot of a lot of information.
Joy, at this time, we have no questions.
Okay. All right. All right. So we're going to go on to SSI now. So if we've determined that you're on SSI, you need to follow a different set of rules. SSI is low income, low resources program for elderly with no disability status, or adults and children with disabilities under the age 18. Originally, when SSI was developed back in the 70s, it was primarily for older individuals who were not disabled but didn't have a work history, you know, or didn't have any kind of retirement benefits, pension, things like that. But as the years have gone by, the roles have grown with adults and children on disabilities. it is a low, I can't stress enough, low income, low resource. This is a program where they want to know everything about you. They want to know who you live with, how much money you have in the bank, how you pay your rent. They want to know everything because it's designed, it's not only for a person with a disability, you have to be low income and low resource. Okay, and I believe after, right now we have another poll come up. All right, well, I think the poll is closed, so we'll go to the next slide. But before we do, so the question was, how much can you have in assets if you're on SSI? And the vast majority got it at $2,000. So you cannot have more than $2,000 in assets to maintain eligibility for SSI. And that goes on through the entire time when you're an application, and as long as you're on SSI, you have to maintain less than $2,000 in assets. I will mention this now because you know, there's a great program called PA-ABLE, which can allow you to save more than $2,000. But I always want to be clear with individuals, because when PA-ABLE first came out, a lot of people thought, well, SSI must have changed the rules. We can have more money in our assets. SSI didn't change any of the rules, but you can put money into the ABLE account and it will not count as an asset, but you have to put it into that specific account. So basically, if you're on SSI and you're living in the United States, you're getting $783 per month. That's considered the federal benefit rate. That is straight across the board. So the vast majority of people that are on SSI are getting $783. There are some individuals, depending on their living situation, might get less, maybe around 500 or so. And the reason for that is because they're not paying all of their room and board expenses or living expenses. Room and board is a very old term, and a lot of times a younger audience is not familiar with it, so I have to always check myself when I say that. Here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Human Services also provides a basic supplement of $22.10. So the person would receive $783 from the federal government and $22.10 from the state. I have a bullet there about, you know, the SSI cash payment can be adjusted monthly based on a variety of reasons. Living situation, if you're getting monies from some other, maybe you have some sort of settlement and you're getting X amount per month. Or if you're working and earning money, that is can be adjusted every month. So it's really, really important that if you don't walk away from here with anything else other than this, if anything changes in your situation, whether you're on SSI or SSDI, make sure you report it to the Social Security Administration. You know, sometimes people call me up and they're like, I don't know if I should report this. If you're on a fence about something and you're not sure if you should, always report. It's better to be on the safe side. because they have to, especially with SSI, they have to do an analysis on a monthly basis to make sure that the person's getting the correct amount. Okay. Here's a chart that I use. There is an actual SSI calculation that they do every month to see, okay, if you're making X amount of dollars, what's going to happen to your SSI? I'm not going to sit here and do a calculation with you because that would, you know, on a webinar, not the most fun thing. But here's a graph that we use, you know, and you can see in the first column, the person's only getting their SSI. So they have $783 coming in. They're not working. Then in the second column, they get a job and they're making $800. They're still going to get an SSI check of $426. So when you look at that, yes, the SSI has gone down, but overall, you're having more money coming in. Because with the SSI of the 426 and the 800 from the job, you're at over $1,200, which is more than you were getting just with the SSI in column 1, the 783. I think with most individuals, you know, for SSI or SSDI, it's kind of a way that you have to do a different type of budgeting, because a lot of times people say, well, I have to get that 783 because I pay all my bills with that. And if I don't get that, I won't be able to pay my rent or this or that. So it's not that you're getting less money, it's just coming from different sources. So you're going to have to budget differently to say, okay, I got my SSI of 426. I'm going to pay these bills, but I have to pull a little bit of money from my paycheck to finish paying this bill or pay another bill. So it's a different way of looking at things and budgeting. And hopefully there's support out there for the beneficiaries to kind of do that on a monthly basis. The other thing I always like to point out with, you know, for SSI or SSDI folks is, you know, you're getting your SSI check on the 1st of the month, and then you're relying on that to cover you till the next month, the 1st of the month. That's a long time to wait for other monies to come in. You know, we all stretch money. I think anyone who works, unless you're, you know, a millionaire, you know, you're stretching money. You pay certain bills on this paycheck, you get a next paycheck, you pay the next certain bills. So, you know, that's generally 2 weeks in between. If you have a whole month span with no other monies coming in, that's a long time to stretch money. So if you're a person now that you're on SSI, you're getting the 426, and then maybe the following week you get a paycheck. And then the next week you don't, but the following week you get another paycheck. So you're not stretching money as far. SSI can go up and down. So if 1 month you make $800, but then the next month you make $950, they're just going to adjust your SSI based on what you're reporting to them. And if something happens at the job, you're not making any money at all, you would go back to the 783. So it's a lot of back and forth. That's why you have to report these earnings, you know, monthly to Social Security without fail. It kind of just has to be something that you do all the time. You know, and we go up through to column 5. I mean, you're working and making $1,300 a month. Your SSI payment is $176. So, I mean, you're almost at $1,500. You're close to doubling your income by working. So these are all good things. And what we do in the individual appointments is kind of walk you through, like, okay, you want to work and make this much, this many hours. We do the calculations for you based on what you're telling us.
Joy, we have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So the first one, my son was on SSI for a disability for a mental health diagnosis, but only received medical assistance due to the child support allocated to him at this time. He is now 18. Do I have to have him apply again to receive income in addition to his medical assistance? If his father, so question mark, and then if his father retires within the next year or two, would we have to reapply again at that time?
Unfortunately, yes to both. So right now he's just getting the medical assistance. He didn't qualify for SSI because of the child support. He could potentially now, and then when dad retires, you would have to fill out a shorter application to get him transferred over to retirement benefits. Yes.
Thank you. The next question. What if one gets a retro payment that is over $2,000?
So they will give you a certain amount of time to spend that down, and depending on how much you're getting in the retro payment, that's dependent on how long they give you to spend it down. Sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 9 months. If it's a larger amount, it'll state that in the letter where it discusses your retroactive payment. So you will have time to spend those down, but you have to spend it down in the designated time.
And then we have another question. It is pretty much the same. My son received a large deposit from Social Security because they recorded his wages incorrectly during COVID, and the amount is over $2,000. Do we have 1 month to spend it down?
That is a little bit different. I would say yes, you should spend that down within a month to be on the safe side, because that's not really a retroactive. That's a miscalculation due to the earnings. Yeah, I would recommend to spend it down within 30 days.
Okay, thank you.
Well, once again, if you know, I'm not encouraging people to just spend money to spend money, because I mean that's not how we should do things in life. But it is important to get those assets below 2,000. You know, I can't recommend enough PA-able. You can put some of that money aside if you don't have things to spend it on, or want to start a savings account for your son or daughter. All right. Oops. I think we had, yeah, a polling question again.
While everybody is taking a look at this poll, I just want to remind everybody, if you would like to download a copy of this presentation, you can do so under the Handouts tab on the right-hand column. If you expand that, the presentation is there and you can download it.
All right, so the poll is closed, and the question was, can a pass be used to buy a car? So we had 67% yes and 33% no. So the correct answer is yes, but there are some stipulations that are attached. One of the reasons I put this polling question in is when we first started doing benefits counseling, kind of informing people about all these great work incentives, people heard about a pass and they're like, oh, cool, Social Security is going to buy me a car. And Social Security will allow you to buy a car, and they do give you some money for that, but the car has to be needed for work. So how this works out as far as the Social Security Administration and a pass, it's basically a fixed savings program. So you're developing a plan with the Social Security Administration for a vocational goal. And if we use the car scenario, let's say I want to go to work, but I want to work at, I just talked to a guy and he wants to work at FedEx, but unfortunately at the distribution center. But unfortunately, there's no bus for him to get there. He could probably take an Uber, but that's pretty costly. So he needs to have a car in order to get to work at FedEx. So he could write up a pass plan. And what Social Security would do is they would say, okay, John, it sounds like a good plan. We got all the T's crossed, I's dotted. And we go back to the SSI here, the work incentives and the calculation. And let's say he's working and his SSI is going to be reduced, down to the 426. If the past plan is approved by Social Security, they're going to say, you know what, we're going to keep giving you the full 783, even though you're working and making 800, but you're going to have to put aside X amount each month to pay for that car. So, it's not like Social Security writes a blank check or goes to the local dealership with you and has you buy a car. They're giving you, or I shouldn't say they're giving you, they're not reducing your SSI, but you have to save that money in order to either make your car payment or save up for a car. So it's a great work incentive. We've helped a lot of people utilize them, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's something that you're going to have to be cognizant of every month to make sure you're saving that money, paying your car payment, doing those types of things. But it's a nice way for a person to get something that's vocationally geared that they need. We've helped people purchase vehicles, also for schooling if they need cost associated with school. Sometimes if they need job coaching services and they're not waiver eligible or not with OVR, and some people to start their own business. So this is a really nice work incentive. It's not used as much as it should be, probably because of the paperwork. I mean, the form itself to even get this started is like 14 pages long. But we do, as benefits counselors, we do help you with that. And I would also say too, I always tell people when they're starting the process with a pass, the local Social Security office doesn't really do anything with this. It's submitted there, but then they transfer it to the regional pass office, which is in our case out of Baltimore, Maryland. So there are individuals there that monitor this on a very, very close basis. But it's a nice work incentive if you need to save some money, and also if you're on SSI to not have that SSI reduction. But it doesn't last forever either. It can be a 2-year plan, 18 months. The most you can do is 5 years. I haven't seen a lot of 5-year plans approved lately, mostly about the 2 to 3 year plan. But this is a very nice work incentive for individuals, vastly underused. All right, another work incentive that isn't used more, but still not enough. These are things called impairment-related work expenses. The acronym is an IRWE. Basically, these are deductions related to the cost of any type of impairment-related item. So if you need to purchase anything related to your disability that you need to go to work, you can use that as a deduction. So in the SSI calculation, let's say you take access to and from work, or you take Uber or the bus because you're not able to drive, and that costs you $100 a month. When Social Security does the calculation for SSI, they would deduct that from your earnings. So your SSI would not be as reduced as much because of that $100 deduction. For SSDI, let's say you were, getting close to substantial gainful activity, but you spend a lot of money going back and forth to work. They would use that as a deduction against your earnings. So it could bring you below the $1,260, which would mean you would keep your SSDI check. So when we do individual counseling, we ask key questions to see if any of these impairment-related work expenses would apply. The biggest one is transportation. So we always ask people, how do you get back and forth to work? Unfortunately, if mom or dad drives you, that's not a deduction because Social Security feels that that's what mom and dads are supposed to do in life. But if you have to, the big ones are the bus, access, Uber now, all those ride sharing places that they're approving those. The person has to pay for the cost of the expense. So it couldn't be paid for under waiver or anything. It has to come out of the person's pocket. You need to submit proof of this monthly. So it's an extra step, but you need to show Social Security, yeah, I paid for this. Transportation is the biggest one. The next one is any type of medical equipment, not deductions, co-pays, those types of things for prescriptions, doctor's visits. Those are all deductions under impairment-related work expenses. If you ever have time, because you know we all have extra time in our lives, right? If you go on Social Security's website and do a search called for the Red Book, it's basically a condensed version of all these work incentives. And what it does really nicely is it gives a list of all the different impairment-related work expenses you could try. There's a list of their ones that are approved and ones that are not. So it's, you know, 2 to 3 pages of different options there. So sometimes, you know, it gets you thinking about what you can use and what you cannot use. But I always tell people, you know, even if it's not on the list as approved and not approved, we always try it, because the worst that can happen is they can say no. I did this years ago, but now it's more popular now with, you know, therapy animals. But this was way back before they even started doing that a lot with them. But I had one lady who used her cat as an impairment-related work expense. You know, the cat food, the, you know, the balls for the cat, the litter, the vet bills, the whole thing was a deduction because her psychiatrist told, you know, wrote a letter to Social Security saying this cat helped her calm down. So it was a very, very early example of a therapy animal. And actually I have another family with a young man with autism, and we're working through the impairment-related work expenses for his emotional support dog. And we're doing the same thing, the whole thing, the vet, you know, and animals are pricey. So, I mean, this is a decent amount of money every month that individuals are paying, but it's helpful for the young man and for the lady. So I always like those because you kind of get to think outside the box a little bit.
Joy, so we have a question in regards to the pass. So
Okay.
a college student who is not working isn't eligible for a pass, correct?
If they were on SSI, they would have to have a second form of income, yes, to put money aside. You have to put something aside. You can't put the SSI aside. So you have to have a second form of income.
And in regards to the Red Book, it can be located at the SSA website?
That is correct, ssa.gov.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Next slide, medical assistance for workers with disabilities. The acronym for this here in Pennsylvania is MAUD. This is a great program. I talk about this many times during the week because a lot of people qualify for this. You know, when we first started doing benefits counseling, MAUD didn't exist. It came out a few years later. So you had some individuals that, you know, were going to go to work and they were going to lose their medical assistance. And, you know, everyone needs medical insurance. Some of us use it more than others, and it can be very costly. So MAUD is great because it allows the person who may have lost their regular medical assistance to now qualify for MAUD and pay a premium. There is a premium involved in it, but it's 5% of the countable income. So they, you know, they do a funny little calculation at DHS again to figure out countable income. I think the average premium for MAUD in Pennsylvania is around $50, $55 a month. So for $50 or $55 a month, you're getting the exact same medical assistance everyone else is. So the co-pays are very low. You get the same type of coverage. This is a great program, and a lot of people have really benefited from this. You know, we talk about this, like I said, a lot to individuals because it really can allow a person who was going to lose their medical assistance if they worked, buy into a program that keeps everything the exact same way it was and allows them to work. This is also helpful for a lot of individuals because if you're on waiver funding, Yeah, that's critical. You have to maintain that waiver funding, and sometimes you get close to that losing that medical assistance. So there's a lot of people that are on mod and still on full waiver services. So there can't be enough said about mod and how it can help people and allow people to do a lot more. Medical assistance for workers with disabilities, the income limit on this is about $45,000 a year. So it's not, there is a maximum to this as well, but still it really covers a lot of individuals, that are working and need their medical assistance. Yeah, and through the intake that we do with individuals, we're asking a lot of questions, obviously, to see what they need, what they need right now, what they're going to need in 3 months from now. So we kind of try to pinpoint, the best options for them and give them options. Okay, you can do this or you can do this, because it's all about the person's choice. So, and there's one more polling question now.
So on this polling question, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. So in what ways can you report both SSDI and SSI earnings to SSA? You need to select all that are correct. All of the other polls, you just selected one, but this one you're going to select all the correct options.
All right, so, I can't state this enough about this reporting. I mean, this is just critical for everyone who's on Social Security benefits and working. So what ways can you report SSI and SSDI? We have 100% US mail, 100% drop off at Social Security office. Yes, those are correct. Those are the, I try to call them the old school methods of how to report. Those are kind of like the fail safes. If you can't, nothing else works, try those two. The telephone came in at 54, app on smartphone 54%, and 100% online. Yeah, so Social Security throughout the years has developed a variety of methods to report earnings to them. It's a work in progress. I hate to say that. The mail or the dropping off have been around forever. Like well, technically you can't drop them off now because Social Security offices are closed, but you can still mail them there, even though they're not having people come into the offices. They're still collecting things. So that hasn't changed. But the telephone reporting has been around for a long time. That is for SSI only. So what it is it's a special number. You call in, you key in your gross earnings for the month, and you get a confirmation number. There's a reporting app on the smartphones. That's for SSI as well only. So if you go to your Google Play Store or however you get your apps on your phone, you type in SSI reporting, it pops up. You can go through those processes. Online through My Social Security portal, that is for SSDI only. So that is through the SSA.gov site. You would have to set up a profile in there, and you could report if you were on SSDI. Now, those are the options, but at times, and there's a variety of reasons why they don't work, the telephone doesn't work, the app doesn't work, and the online might not work. Even though those things seem very automated and you can just do it and be done with it, there's still someone at Social Security that has to input information on the back end of it. So I was actually talking to a young lady yesterday, and she started working in April. And in the beginning of May, she used the app on the smartphone, reported everything, no problems. And then this last week, she went in to report for May's, which would have been her second month of work on the smartphone, just like she did it before, and it won't let her do it. So she called me, we looked into it, and here, even though it worked the first month, the local Social Security office had to put in some information on their end, and they didn't do that yet. And most likely due to COVID and all this other stuff that's going on, there's a delay. So until Social Security is able to update that on that end, she's not going to be able to use the smartphone again for reporting her earnings. So these are not perfect systems, but they're on the back end. There's still someone at Social Security that needs to do something. So that's where some of this frustration can come in, because it's like, hey, it's the app. I can pay my credit card bill and do all this stuff. And you can, you know, on other apps, but on the Social Security app, they still need that human person to do something on the end, maybe update to see where the person's working at. Do we have what's going on here? So I just would caution you, if something doesn't work, don't say, you know what, I'll catch them next month. It has to be worked on a monthly basis. And if all else fails, you do the old school of mailing it into the local Social Security office. I know that's not the best scenario for a lot of individuals, but you are required to report your earnings monthly. That is something that as a Social Security beneficiary, you have to do. Even though you're working at FedEx or the hotel or wherever you're working at and they're taking taxes out, it doesn't go through Social Security system quick enough. So it's up to the person to report their earnings every month. I know that gets overwhelming for people, and it's you know, just another thing we have to do in life, but it is critical because, you know, especially for the SSI, it can happen on the SSDI as well, but that's how these overpayments happen. And I mean, you don't want to get into a situation where you owe Social Security money back. We're trying to improve our situation, not cause more issues. Any questions on the reporting and what people have seen or what they've encountered, anything like that?
Joy, we don't have any questions at this point.
Okay. All right, I'm just checking the time here. We've got 9 more minutes, so we'll go through here and talk a little bit more about our work incentive counseling, and then we'll go from there. So what do we do? Oh,
we did get one question that just popped into our box. Does everyone have different due dates for reporting, or is it like the first of the month for everybody?
You should, as a rule, report by the 5th of the following month. So whatever you've earned in May should have been reported by June 5th.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So what is work incentive counseling? You know, I alluded to this throughout the presentation, but basically when we, you know, meet with a person either face-to-face when we're able to, or do virtual things like that, you know, we're willing to do whatever we need to. We basically confirm the current status of your Social Security benefits. And we do that by getting a benefits planning query. That's a BPQY. This is a special form that we get as benefits counselors under our contract with Social Security. Basically, it's a snapshot of your benefits. What type of benefit are you getting? How much? Are you in an overpayment? Have you ever used your trial work period? It's just basic information, but it can allow us to provide you with that work incentive counseling. That's critical that we get that early on in the process, because a lot of times individuals do not know what benefits they're getting. I talked to a family last week it was, and they said, well, we get survivor's benefits. And that could be if the child's under the age of 18, but then I found out she's actually over 18, so it turns into another benefit. So we need to know what type of benefit. That's a starting point in order for us to say, this is what's going to happen to your benefits when you go to work. The way we get those BPQYs is we can send the person releases in the mail. They send them back to us, and we get them on, from those releases. We can also have you contact Social Security at the 800 number, the national 800 number, and request one on your own, and they will mail it to your home. And then we just need to get like a picture of it, or you bring it into your meeting if we're meeting face to face. But that's critical that we get that. That's like the first step. During the intake, and we go over work history. What do you want to do? What have you done in the past? Anything about personal facts. Are you married? Do you have any kids? Are they getting a benefit off of you? Are they getting any type of benefit? Not that long ago, I had one lady, and she got SSDI. She had 2 or 3 kids. I think 2 of the kids got SSI. There was a lot of things to look at because her work could affect a variety of things in the household. And we do various scenarios. We kind of chart things out. Okay, if you're going to make $700 a month, this is what's going to happen. If you're going to make 1,000, if you're going to make 2,000, we discuss applicable work incentives like the ERWI, the PASS. Hey, you might, if you said you needed money for school, a PASS might be an option for you. We give you some benefit management tools, how to keep track of things, cover letters to send in if you're using the old school method of mailing in pay stubs, send it in with this cover letter. We give everyone an individualized report that kind of outlines everything we talked about and everything we found out. So it's kind of, the resolution to everything that we've talked to you about. And you can refer back to that. And then we provide follow-up periodically. Usually after the first 3 months that we meet, we'll call you once, and after a few more months, and then at a year point, we'll keep in contact. But by all means, if people have questions, they can always reach out to us. There's nothing saying you can't call more than once a month or anything like that. I have some individuals call regularly. Others, I don't hear from too often, unless they get a letter or something that they have questions on. But we're here for individuals. And I've worked with some individuals, for 10, 12 years as things develop, because, it's a fluid situation. Maybe you get married, maybe you have a kid, you change jobs, you get raises. I mean, all these things can happen. So WIPA is what's known as Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Program. That is our title within the Social Security Administration. Like I said, I'm not a Social Security employee. I do work for AHEDD. There are 3 WIPA providers here in Pennsylvania. AHEDD covers, Western Pennsylvania. Goodwill Keystone covers like Harrisburg and up north. And then Disability Rights of Pennsylvania covers the Philadelphia area. We can work with anyone age 14 through 65 who are working, planning on working, want to pursue employment, and just have questions on what's going on. But that's,
Joy, is there a good 1-800 number for people to call into if they need assistance?
That is the next slide. So what we've been asked to do by Social Security is have our referrals come to each WIPA via the Ticket to Work helpline. So if anyone is on the call and needs services, I would encourage you to call the Ticket to Work helpline, and then they can answer some basic questions for you on the phone when you call. But if you need more intensive services, they'll say, hey, we have a benefits counselor in your area through AHEDD. Would you like us to refer you to them? And then what happens is the helpline refers them directly over to us. We get a little bit of basic information on what they talk to you about, and we go from there. And that's the number. And then they're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And this is the preferred method for us. We're required to do certain things. For example, whenever I get a referral from the helpline, I have 2 days to accept it. So it goes into a portal and I have to accept it. Once I accept it, I either keep it or I give it to my staff, one of my staff members, and we have to reach out to that person at least once within the first 5 business days. So, you know, Social Security is holding us accountable because we want to reach people right away. You know, if you have the question that comes up now, we don't want to talk to you in 3 months from now when it's kind of a moot point. We want to get to you as soon as we can. So this is a better way instead of back in the day would be like, oh, hey, I know this lady, called Joy Smith, here's her phone number. And then, you know, you get a voicemail or this or that. I mean, not the best system, but this is working out really well. We've been doing this now for a couple years. And it's, I mean, we get them daily. We had a little bit of a dip in referrals when, you know, all this stuff was happening, states are shutting down and things like that, but we're seeing them come back now. So we get them on a daily basis.
Joy, we have one more question that came in. Do you have to get SSDI or SSI to get mod?
No. No, you don't. What you can do is if you certify with the state, basically saying I have a disability, they will presume eligibility and they will give you mod. Yes. You have to have a disability, but you do not have to be on SSI or DI.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any last minute questions for Joy? Joy, we don't have any further questions. I want to thank you so much. You are, as always, a wealth of knowledge and an expert in the field, so we thank you for joining us. If anybody has any questions, they can reach out to the info line at the Peel Center, or you can reach Joy staff at the number on your screen. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.